This is Up in Canada. I'm your host, Dominic Raphael. And what I'm going to do here today is burn this candle out of respect for all those who came before us, who were wrongly accused or were wrongly accused by the narrative, the political narrative, if you will. That candle represents us all. We are a flicker in the enormous space of the universe. Today, I have a very unique programming. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to amalgamate two of my subjects. One, is it legal? And two, or is it Cloak and Dagger? If you go to Twitter nowadays, you won't be censored as much as you used to be. Of course, that doesn't mean you have free willy-nilly to do and say whatever you want. But if you have a point to make, that's where you need to make it. Because as Elon said, nobody is guilty until they prove they're guilty. So I want to talk about April 29th, 2022. It wasn't the best day, weather-wise, but it was quite enlightening because I spent most of my time outside for a good portion of 3 to 4 hours over the span of the day. Cleaning up, shoveling snow, mending fences, sweeping up gravel and sand, picking up dirt and garbage. Well, not so much dirt, but picking up garbage that has accumulated over the winter, and it is ugly every time the snow melts away. It's like you have this excitement for spring right around the corner, and although you can put up with the cold and the uncertainty in the weather, you still have that that hope that there'll be a sunny day. But that's all quashed when the snow melts, because it just reveals how polluted our streets are. But I'm not here to talk about the environment. I'm here to talk about, on a legal point, that was, and I do have proof of it being illegal, was being put under surveillance. And we're talking Cloak and Dagger all the way. As I sat out on the steps, I always admire my community. I watch the people go by, I watch people do their business, watch people take their kids for a walk, I watch how the traffic and vehicles pass in front of the steps all the time. There's just always an excitement that's going on. And of course, in every neighborhood you've got some undesirables or some unfortunate people who are not blessed with a beautiful life. But does that make a community? Well, it does create a community, but is it a peaceful and quiet community? No. And the reason why is that there's just too much discord with your neighbors and others that aren't even part of the neighborhood. So my point, going back to being under surveillance, just across the way there is a Liberal office on Broadway. And at the corner of that office was and I'm calling this person an actor, because they parked their cart just enough around the corner so that you could only see the handlebars of the cart. I didn't think much of it at the time. I mean, every neighborhood in closed downtown areas specifically have, transient people. Not to say that there's something wrong with it, because there isn't. Because that's just the way people are living their lives, or have no choice but to live their lives that way. Although they could probably do better if they had some inspiration, let's say. Needless to say, this individual had a newer luggage bag, the hard shell type, laying in the cart, and a big one. And then they had an additional bag laying on the handlebars of the cart. That one, though, was of a soft leather or material. And that was the only part that was facing my direction. So there has been a lot of activity going on throughout the day. I would call it the spy movement of one individual. But this one individual, who I don't know, caused a disturbance, which entailed 3 cruiser cars, 1 rescue truck, and 2 ambulances. And this is over a course of over an hour and a half. So aside from that, this cart that was parked at the corner of Yonge and Broadway, facing my direction while I was out on the steps, was there for 45 minutes. There was another car that pulled up on Yonge Street and started talking to this individual. Now, this individual, I didn't see their face because they were masked completely. The only thing you could see, not even that, was these 2 little holes for their eyes. So what makes you think, or what does it make me think, that there was some kind of a surveillance taking place at the time? Well, very simple. This person was there, and that cart was there for 45 minutes. And although I didn't think much of it at the time or throughout the 45 minutes, until it just dawned on me, something didn't feel right. Something, when you get that sense that someone's watching you? Well, that's the sense I got. And as you know, I am very talented when it comes to seeing people's alternative motorist operandus, and their intentions. Good, bad, or ugly, it doesn't matter. I can sense that in around me. It doesn't have to be right up in my face. I can be a couple of yards away, or several yards away, or even up to 100 yards away. Maybe even, let's say 50 yards. Because if you tune into the energy around you, you will notice there are spikes in energy. One thing I did notice with a lot of the people that had walked by or had been going about their day, I sensed a lot of fear in these individuals and these patrons, up and down Broadway. It was what it was. By getting back to this stalker, or this surveillance, this actor, I thought something doesn't feel right, and my attention, my sense drew me to the corner of Yonge and Broadway. and it's in direct sight of where I was looking. And it's also in direct sight to where I plan my new developments and construction, because I'm trying to create a market, for example, to invite people to not be so mysterious to each other, and an opportunity for them to, sell their wares, and an opportunity for me to earn a living, because over the past 2 years, people's earnings and livings have been pretty much null and void. Sad but true. Anyways, I thought, nope, I can sense it, I know it, I feel it, I'm going to do something about it. So what I did was I got off the chair, I walked down the steps, walked to the gate, I opened the gate, walked to the street, waited for the traffic to pass by, back and forth, a bus passed by, several cars passed by, the light turned red, that stopped traffic on the east side, and then there was no traffic on the west. I stepped across the road. I turned going west, and just before I got to the corner of Yonge and Broadway, a mad dash of this person was gone. Now they got probably 300 yards from me before I even got around the corner. So I don't know if that is more evident that I've been under surveillance or someone is stalking me. There has been a lot of controversy in the neighborhood, and there's a lot of development going on in the neighborhood. So this is again something that might come into play, and reasons why, because as I was mending a fence, one of the tenants at the apartment block stopped and said, "Excuse me, sir, but was this gate left open?" And I'm like, I have no idea. I didn't feel that there was a need for me to engage somebody who I knew from nowhere, but someone who, in my sensitivity, felt it was actually quite abrupt and rude, as to assume I was the one who left the gate open, which isn't the case. But it's also the same building that 2 properties that I manage have been in conflict for the last 8 years, and they're all in courts. So that's ongoing, as you know. If you check my other videos out at www.upincanada.us, all lowercase, you can view those videos. There's one called Changes That Are Coming, and it gives you a very modest breakdown of what my company and myself as an individual, and also my partners in the business have had to deal with over the years. Needless to say, that is Cloak and Dagger to me. I don't know what it would be to anybody else, but when you find somebody that you approach and all of a sudden they're taking off like a scared rabbit, that has to tell you something. So, is it legal or is it Cloak and Dagger? Well, I think it's both. Because why would I be under surveillance? Unless I had more to say about the narrative that has been spewed across Canada for the last 100 years, or however long the far lefts have been constructing their new construct, and it is starting to crumble around them, the construct. So that means they're running scared, which is probably why so many people around me, I sensed fear in them. Now, fear for what's going on in the world, I don't know. Fear about myself. If ever, why would they have fear? Needless to say, yeah, there's a lot of fear going around. But I have to point out one thing, that is that the only fear a person can endure is the fear that they eloquently embrace. And I don't embrace fear. I have been through a lot over my lifetime, and I've learned a lot over my lifetime. And I've been accused a lot over my lifetime. And that is the misfortune of living in a close society. I like the thought of individual democracy. I don't think that's the way it was termed, but it's more like direct democracy. That's it. It was direct democracy. So that is Cloak and Dagger. That is illegal. And the other thing that I have been relentlessly documenting is, well, you know what? This pandemic has given people a whole lot of other reasons to sit up and take note. Because there's so much controversy and collusion, if I can use that word, and there's a lot of dissent. This weekend we have the Rolling Thunder that is taking place in Ottawa. You know, I've watched Rumble News, and none of the officers that have been brought in will talk to you. You know, it feels much like an incident when we were being trespassed again, but only on an overhead skylift. Now, a time ago, there was a hanging eavesdrop, and the space between the two properties is quite narrow. But the owner went to the extreme to call the fire department to come down and remove this piece of metal pronto. Simply because, well, I made claim and state that they were trespassing without permission. I mean, could have asked. Just kind of said, hey, do you mind if we take this down in case it falls on somebody? Hey, I'm all for that. As long as you are upfront and transparent. But this wasn't transparent. You know, the fire officer wasn't even coherent in what his actions were doing. He was up on the ladder, the extended ladder, and he basically took grip of this foil, this metal, the old, crown metaling that's on these older buildings, and just ripped it down. And I was 20 feet away. If I had been any closer, that could have sliced my neck off, sliced my body. It could have cut me in half. But did they think about that? No. Not for a moment. Fortunately, it just hit one of our bushes and broke that one in half. So again, where's the transparency? What gives any person the right to trespass over your property or your company's property, or any property for that matter, without getting permission? I mean, that's just common sense, that's courtesy. And yet the fire department couldn't even do that much. Well, that day was quite a busy day, because I will be featuring that in another show sometime in the future, when I find and deem it necessary. And there's a lot of documentation of what went down that day. My rights as a person, as a Canadian, as a property owner, as an investor, as a company, did not apply. Because somebody had a judgment, or somebody had, or was discontent, or didn't feel that you mattered. The officers even went as far as to bring in their chief supervisor to discuss this impending trespass when they were going to rebuild and remodel and redesign and put up new crown molding on this building. Again, they came in, they didn't ask, they just assumed that they had the right to trespass on your property, yet knowing all well that, you know, there's been a dispute for over 8 years for that very same building. What has come to light recently is even more interesting, to say the least. All of a sudden, this building is up for sale. All of a sudden, another individual is buying the shares of this building, which was owned by someone who owned apparently 80 buildings in this city. That's a lot of buildings for one person to own. But what would that tell you? That would tell me that they know they're guilty of the encroachment. They know it can be proven, and it will be proven. They know that there will be consequences, financial consequences, for what they took away from the company, what they took away from the property, how they delayed the proximity to opening up a business for this property. And yet all around us, the construction is crazy, absolutely crazy. Oh, I can't even begin, but you know what I'm going to do this spring? I think I'm going to take a little walking tour around my neighborhood, and I'm going to film all of the new buildings that just recently got built, all the ones under construction, and all the ones in the moment of being constructed. Even our parliament has been under construction for the last couple of years. Now our parliament runs, our Broadway runs across our parliament in Winnipeg, and they dug underground, under Broadway. This is a 6-lane Broadway. Well, there's a medium in the middle, but with trees and grass, but 2 lanes, 3 lanes either way, east and west. They blocked it, closed it all off, and built a tunnel that goes from the Law Courts building to Parliament. What does that tell you? We're paying a lot of frickin' money in taxes, and there is a major construction boom going on in the city, and our parliament is also under construction. After that was done, and it was closed down for probably 6, 7, 8 months, it was quite closed down that way. Now they've moved the construction to the south side on the Parliament grounds, and again they have it all blocked off, all with, you know, 8-foot fence line that is basically wrapped in cloth that you can't see through. They have heavy equipment in there, they have cranes in there, they have all kinds of stuff in there. So what are they building, a bunker? Are we in for a rather unusual and very concerning time? Needless to say, that's getting off the subject. That is legal because, well, our taxes are paying for it. On a note of Cloak and Dagger, I gotta say, I am intrigued by the many, let's just say, many discontented neighbors. take this, for instance. This here is one's depiction of a DNA chain, I should say. This idea was put on a piece of cloth. By the way, is bamboo cloth. It's actually quite comfortable. And I picked it up at the Forks. We have this market at the Red and Assiniboine where they meet, called the Forks Market in Winnipeg. It was a clothing store. A lot of interesting stuff. I don't even know if they exist anymore. Needless to say, this is that. So you look at this and you're thinking, well, you know what? Isn't life just like your DNA strand? It keeps multiplying time after time after time. And then it detours or branches off into a different direction. Is that not what we call evolution? Is that not what we call evolving? You know, as a human species, we physically evolve every day. And the only thing that's not evolving is our mindset. Too much of the same narrative has been playing over and over and over again, generation after generation. And it's now coming to an end. There's discord across the planet because too many few are trying to control too many others. So that's our next challenge. Not a bitter neighbor or culture. So out of respect for all those who came before me, father, grandfather, great-grandfather, and so on and so forth, I may be speaking out of turn here, but in some cultures, they believe that the crimes of a father and grandfather and great-grandfather and even greater-grandfather becomes the crimes of the sons and daughters of that lineage. You know, if we continue to have this mindset that this is yours and this is mine, and I'm no better at it because, well, that's how we grew up, materializing things that really don't belong to anybody but us all. So can you get past the assumptions, get past the criticisms, get past the rumors, or even get past generations of things done wrong before us? That includes religion. Mind you, you can be as religious as you want, you can be as spiritual as you want, you can grow or you can fester. And more often than not, people choose to fester. And that's what makes us all ill. I'm Dominic Raphael, or you can call me the doctor. DR, Dominic Raphael. The doctor is signing out on this note. That's the one. So cheers. From up in Canada, I'm your host, Dominic Raphael. This candle here, that is in memory of all that came before me and all those that came before them. Bring peace in the universe. by bringing peace on Earth. The one planet in the solar system that has no other planet like ours. Put it up on a pedestal, because that's what it is. We are on a pedestal in space. So cheers.